Alright folks, so real quick, this video is not sponsored by Thypoch. They did send me this lens, but no money has exchanged hands and they do not get any say in this video. I wanted to try out this lens. I own a bunch of their cinema lenses and I actually own the version 1, but I didn't like the infinity lock and just that user experience. So I'm just sharing my experiences with this lens after using it for the last couple of weeks. I've gone to the Tetons, some local hikes in my area in Utah, and just share all of those thoughts with you guys. But yeah, this video is not sponsored by Thypoch, but it does have a sponsor, and that is Onyx Backcountry, and I'll talk about them in a few minutes. I just want to talk about the changes that Thypoch have made to this lens. So optically, it's the same as the version 1. However, they've made some ergonomic changes and physical changes, so you no longer have that infinity lock, which bothered me a lot because it would often get locked as I was usually focusing in that infinity range. And they've added a focus tab now, so typical to most Leica M lenses. It's very nice to use, it looks great, they made it a little bit smaller, but other than that, it's the same internals as the Type 1. So the bulk of this video, I spent a few days in Grand Teton National Park making photos, but before that I went up to a local trail with my family, and this is honestly what I love about photography, is just capturing these kind of everyday moments. And on this hike, I really noticed how the Thypoch renders just beautifully, and I had my Q3 with me at the same time, and the images from the M11 and the Thypoch, they were so rich, and I really didn't have to do too much manipulation. I used my presets on these, but I had to bring the saturation down a little bit because it was so vibrant. But what I love the most is just the pure, contrasty, rich, punchy blacks, just how deep those blacks are in these photos. And that's something that I try and emulate with my photography style, but the Thypoch made it really easy to do. Now, I've been to the Tetons a ton of times over the last few years. In the summer times, I'm going at least 2 to 3 times a month because it's honestly my favorite place out there. But it's very important when you're going on a photography trip to do some location scouting. Now, because I've been to the Tetons so many times, I don't generally have to do scouting anymore. But if I'm going to a new area, then I will pull up a map and look for some compositions, look for some trails that I may want to explore and make some photos on. And my go-to platform is Onyx Backcountry, which is the sponsor of today's video. Now, Onyx Backcountry isn't just on a web browser, you can also get it on your phone as an app as well. And it's basically a comprehensive GPS navigation tool designed for outdoor enthusiasts. And as an outdoor enthusiast with all of my photography adventures, this app has been absolutely crucial to planning trips and just scouting out compositions. I use it to scout trails, check out conditions. You can also download offline maps and mark waypoints for whenever I'm out of service, which, let's be honest, is most of the time. You can switch between topographic, satellite, and even 3D maps. It shows trail info, avalanche zones, And one of the biggest things as well, it shows what land is public and what land is private. So if you're flying drones, you can know where the drone boundaries are for national parks and things like that. And if you're planning a route, it can also help you understand if you're going to be crossing private land and whether or not you need to change that route. So think of this as kind of your all-in-one map experience. It's got all the trail info that you could want if you want to go on a hike. So we can check out Delta Lake here, which is one of my favorite hikes. And it's going to have updated info. Obviously this time of year it's fully snowed over. But what I love the most is the layer options that this has. So as you can see, we've got private land, we've got government land, wildfires, and air quality index. So this is very key, particularly if you're traveling to the Tetons, because the wildfire smoke can kind of sit in this valley. And I've had some very bad experiences over the past few years. So this gives you active information, up-to-date wildfire info, and kind of the air quality index as well. So you know what you're getting yourself into before you plan your trip. To check out more information about Onyx Backcountry, you can check the link in the description of this video. They're currently running a sale of 60% off a premium or elite membership until June 5th, so definitely check it out before that expires. So in terms of build quality, it's pretty solid. Honestly, quite surprised for a third-party lens. Externals, it's just built very similar to how this Leica Summicron is built. Now, obviously, size comparison, this is an f2 versus an f1.4, so that's not really a fair comparison. But this is a solid lens, and this was made in the 70s, and still holds up to this day in terms of build quality. Image quality, on the other hand, this has a lot of character at f2.8, well, up to f2.8, should I say. I believe this is so it's a Canada Light Summicron 35mm. I think it's like a version 3. It's not the King of Bokeh, it's the one before that. So I'm going to just do a couple of, chill comparisons between these two lenses. So this comparison is pretty basic. I didn't want to get too technical, and what I did to make it fair is I set both lenses to f2.8 because they both sharpen up around there, and I kept the edits the same across the board. Now it's interesting to note how the Summicron does lean cooler in the overall tonality, and we can see some character on the edges, and that's partly due to its age being a much older lens. The Thypoch is incredibly clean corner to corner, and at f2.8 it is very sharp, much sharper than this Summicron lens. Okay, so one thing that I want to point out is that the Thypoch is not as sharp as I had hoped at f1.4. Now, granted, it's a cheap lens in the grand scheme of things, so there should be some drawbacks, and being clinically sharp at f1.4 is a steep ask, and that's something you pay into the thousands for. However, I tend to shoot wide open, particularly in these kind of photos, and I focus on the mountains, and it really struggles at infinity of being sharp. And I took a bunch of photos using the screen so that I wouldn't have any user error with the rangefinder, to make sure that I was in focus, and I was changing the focus at small increments, and this was the sharpest photo that I got. So I'm going to punch in here, and you can really see how it's just completely not in focus. Now, you may not notice this on social media, but I notice it. And then we switch over to f3.4, and it's incredibly sharp. It's crispy, it's clear, and that's where you see the biggest difference. You jump above f2.8, and it really sharpens up at that infinity focus point. If you have the Type 1, the optics are going to be exactly the same. The biggest difference is the user experience. I own the Type 1, I bought a long time ago, and it has a focus, it has an infinity lock, which got really annoying, and I much prefer having a focus tab. All around, the focusing is a little bit smoother, and they have made a very slight change to the size of it. I think it's just ever so slightly slimmer. So all in all, optically, they are the same. So if you have the Type 1, then this whole video still applies to you in terms of the image quality that you're going to get out of this lens. And for $750, it is pretty damn good. For reference, this 50-year-old lens that I have, the Leica Summicron, goes for around $1,500 currently on the used market. So obviously Leica retains their value, and this lens has survived 50 years. I don't know if this lens is going to survive 50 years. It feels like it's built really well, but time will tell on how the internals stand, to use and abuse over the years to come. But all in all, if you're looking for a solid 35mm with an f1.4 aperture, albeit it is soft at f1.4, but it sharpens up super nice after 2.8, you really can't go wrong with this lens. So with all of that being said, for $750, you really can't go wrong with this lens. It's going to be my go-to 35mm on my M11 for the foreseeable future. Build quality is fantastic, the image quality is great, and it sharpens up super nicely at 2.8 and onwards. And the design of it just fits the M11 really well. So huge thank you to Thypoch for sending over this lens, and also a massive thank you to Onyx Backcountry for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check them out in the link down below, and I'll see you in the next video.